Lesson 20. Answering his opponents. And no man was able to answer him a word, neither durst any man from that day forward ask him any more questions. Reading Matthew 22 verses 15 to 46 and Mark 12. Objective: to show how Jesus defeated his opponents by publicly exposing their ignorance of the Scriptures and who he was. This lesson also shows us that our own service to God must be based on a love of God and a desire to please Him. Background: the Jewish leaders were seething with hatred toward Jesus. They were determined that Jesus must be destroyed, and in a way which appeared to be right. They thought up 3 questions. They were sure that if he attempted to answer them, he would be sure to say something that they could use to convict him. So they came to Jesus with mock sincerity, but in reality they were hypocrites and spies. Matthew 22 verse 18 and Luke 20 verse 20. Question 1. Tribute to Caesar or not? Matthew 22 verses 15 to 22. The Pharisees were so keen to entangle Jesus in his talk that they were prepared to seek help from their enemies, the Herodians. Verse 15. Jesus was their greatest threat to power, influence, and respect. The Pharisees sought to trap Jesus. They tried flattery. "We know that thou art true and carest for no man, for thou regardest not the persons of men, but teachest the way of God in truth." Cunningly they asked him, "Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Whichever answer Jesus gave, they could catch him. If he said they should not pay taxes, he was guilty of treason against the Romans, and they would accuse him before the governor. Luke 20 verse 20. If Jesus said that they should pay taxes, then he was a traitor to the Jews, siding with the Romans. "Show me the tribute money," he requested. "Whose is this image and superscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. "Render therefore unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." In so replying, the Lord not only avoided the cunning trap set for him by his foes, but also set out for us our guidelines in deciding our responsibilities. Because we are in the image of God, we should render to God the service for which he brought us into the world. Our schoolwork, our employment, our recreation should all be a service rendered to God. Colossians 3 verse 23, Ephesians 6 verses 5 to 8. Our obligation to the things that are Caesar's consists on being law-abiding citizens and paying our taxes. Romans 13 verse 1 and Romans 13 verses 6 and 7. Question 2. Resurrection and marriage. Matthew 22 verses 23 to 33. Next the Sadducees approached him with a question to show him that he was wrong. This sect only accepted the authority of the first 5 books of the Scriptures and did not believe the doctrine of the resurrection. The question, they believed, made the whole belief of resurrection appear ridiculous. They posed what they called a hypothetical question. A man with 6 brothers died, they said, and one brother took his widow as his wife, as was the custom under the Mosaic law. As one brother after another dies, so a surviving brother married the dead man's widow. This continued until all men had in turn been married to the same woman. In the resurrection, they asked, whose wife shall the woman be? Ye do greatly err, not knowing the Scriptures or the power of God, said Jesus. When they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels which are in heaven. Marriage is for this age, so that a godly seed can be developed. It is a symbol of the time when Jesus Christ will be united with his followers in immortality. the marriage of the Lamb. See Revelation 19 verse 7. Jesus then went on to teach the positive truth of the resurrection. He quoted from the first 5 books which the Sadducees believed. At the burning bush, Yahweh called himself the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, even though all these men were dead. How could he do this? They were alive to God who intended to raise them. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Mark 14 verse 12 and compare with Romans 4 verse 19. Question 3. Which is the greatest commandment? Mark 12 verse 28 to 34. Jesus' words were heard by many who marveled at his authority and teaching. Amongst those was a scribe who was very moved by his reasoning. Motivated by a desire to resolve a frequently debated issue, he inquired of the Lord, "Which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Without hesitation, Jesus asserted, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength." The profession of love for God was easy to make, but Jesus added a test, whereby the profession could be tried to see if it was genuine. If a man truly loves God, he will also love his fellow man. The second is like, namely this, "Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself." It was here that the hollowness of their profession to love God could be seen. Verses 38 to 40. Disregard for the poor and the widows, coupled with self-righteousness, revealed quite plainly that the Pharisees loved neither God nor man but self. Jesus said the 2 commandments were inseparable. The scribe responded, "Well, Master, thou hast said the truth." Recognizing a spark of new appreciation and humility in the scribe, Jesus gave him quick encouragement. "Thou art not far from the kingdom of God." Basic Bible truth: God is one. When Jesus told the scribe that the Lord our God is one Lord, Mark 12 verse 29, he restated what was for the Jew the most basic teaching of the Old Testament, found in Deuteronomy 6 verse 4. But this teaching has a practical application. There is indeed only one God and none other. Since there is one God, we must worship him with all our heart, soul and strength. If there were several gods, then the worshippers would divide their attention between them. If you worship 5 gods, then you would give each 20%. Yahweh is one, and he wants us totally, 100%. There is a problem for the Trinitarian in this passage. Not only did Jesus quote Deuteronomy 6 verse 4, but he restated the Jewish understanding of a single God. He did not try to convince the man otherwise and tell him that God was really 3. He let him go away believing that God the Father was the only God, and that he was not far from the kingdom of God. An unanswered question. Mark 12 verses 35 to 40. There was little confidence left in those whose aim it had been to destroy the Master's teaching. Jesus asked the subdued Pharisees a straightforward question. Whose son was Messiah to be? They knew well that he must be in the line of David, and said so. But Jesus exposed their incomplete understanding by responding, David himself called him Lord, so how is he his son? How could David refer to Messiah as his ruler and son? The authorities were baffled and could not answer. Jesus' question highlighted their lack of appreciation of the critical fact that Messiah was to be the Son of God, as well as the son of David by natural descent. It was a combination of this ignorance and their sense of self-importance that compelled the Pharisees to plot the death of Jesus. She cast in all that she had. Mark 12 verses 41 to 40. Jesus showed a keen interest in the ways of men, and as he sat in the temple, he was interested to observe the many different people placing their offerings in the treasury boxes. Of all these classes of people he observed at that time, he singled out a poor widow as worthy of comment. To many she would have passed unnoticed. She was alone, and it was very apparent from her appearance that she was desperately poor. As Jesus watched her put in her 2 mites, he could see a heart rich in faith, and commented, "This poor widow hath cast more in than all they that have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in of their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living." Her example, in a certain sense, bears upon the 3 incidences of the day. She was too poor to be troubled by taxation. She paid what she owed, and what was left over was given to God. Her wants did not matter. She was a widow, of the class whose houses were devoured by the rich. Matthew 23 verse 14. She depended upon God and waited patiently for a better day. Her whole life, all her living, was devoted to God, as the commandment required. Jesus commended her, but rebuked the hypocritical Pharisees. Summary and lessons for us. The leaders of the day put questions to Jesus to trap him. By the end of the day it was they that looked small, because in their pride they could not face up to whom Jesus really was. When Jesus commended the response of the scribe who questioned him on the greatest commandment, he taught us too that it is our understanding of God and our love for him that is important. From our understanding and love of God will stem love and care for our fellow man, and in that frame of mind we can set our feet firmly on the way to the kingdom. The unrepentant attitude of the Pharisees to the teaching of Christ will be a lesson to us all. It was the pride of these men that prevented them from accepting the wisdom of the Lord. Although they inwardly realized they were at fault in their observation of the law, they were unable to give up their hold on worldly satisfaction. The teaching of the Master still requires us to submit humbly to his ways, and this sometimes requires us to forsake other ambitions. May we show wisdom in seeking after the glory of the kingdom that is set before us, and renounce the temporary attractions of this world. These lessons are the words taken from the Christadelphian Sunday School Association notes, www.cssa.asn.au, used with permission. Email your questions to readthebible2@gmail.com. The next lesson in Stage 4 will be Lesson 21, the Olivet Prophecy.